Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing an empties video. It's about 6 months since I did my last empties video and I've accumulated a few bottles to talk about. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire Smith and I make videos all about perfume, perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology. I also just do some straight perfume reviews. So if that interests you and you haven't done already, then please do consider subscribing, and also please like this video if you do like this video. I do have a few empties videos in a playlist. I'm going to link that down below in case you do really like perfume empties. I find them super satisfying myself, and it's just nice to know that I'm moving through my collection and getting to try different things as a result of using things up. So I'm just going to run through what I thought of these fragrances, whether I would repurchase them, whether that's now or whether that's in future. I'm going to warn you that generally I don't want to repurchase fragrances that I've already owned, because as much as I sometimes love a fragrance, there's a whole other world of fragrance out there for me to try, and life's a bit short to just hang on one fragrance all the time. And I think as people on YouTube looking at fragrances, we are always looking for the one, aren't we? And even when you find your one, sometimes you just move on because there might be another one out there. It's a really weird concept, really, fragrance on YouTube, but there it is. I'm just putting that out there. So the first fragrance is one from Glossier, and Glossier only make one fragrance, so you know which one it is. It's You. So Glossier You is a fragrance that I was just so curious about when I first heard about it. I bought this one back in, I think, 2020, and I've been kind of hoarding my last little bit, and I still do have a teeny tiny little bit left, which I will continue to hoard, but basically it's empty. It's got like that much left. So I'm just keeping that for reference. But this is a amberette fragrance mainly. But to me, in the opening, there is a good soapiness about this fragrance. I'm not keen on soapy fragrances, but this one is one that I really do enjoy. And the soapiness just smells to me like general clean skin. So this has got like woods in it, it's got musky tones in it, and you just smell like you just stepped out of a bath. And I think this fragrance is absolutely perfect for when you don't want a strong fragrance, or when you want to go somewhere where you're not allowed to wear fragrance, so you're not allowed to wear fragrance at work or something like that. It's something that people notice, but they don't necessarily think, oh, you're wearing a fragrance. They think, oh, you've just got out of a shower or a bath and you've put some moisturiser on. It's something that's not obviously a perfume. And I think that's what I really like about it. And out of the molecular sort of less natural smelling fragrances, shall I say, like Juliette Has a Gun, Escentric Molecules, things like that, I think this is probably one of the best examples of that for me. It's also a really reasonable price point as well. I think Glossier You is a fragrance that makes me think of aesthetic movements like hygge, or like minimalism almost, but minimalism with a hug attached to it. Not something cold and harsh, something that's welcoming and enveloping. And I think that's what attracts me to this fragrance. That's what's so addictive about it. It is a very comforting fragrance. So Glossier You, I wouldn't say it's like the longest lasting fragrance. I think it's something I actually stop smelling on me when other people can smell it, so I don't think I could truly judge that. It's quite close to skin, it's meant to be close to skin, but it's just one that I really do like, and I really would consider purchasing this one in the future. It's really been something that I've really enjoyed. So that's Glossier You. So the next fragrance that I finished is a diesel fragrance, and this is the last flanker in the Loverdose series. So this is Loverdose Red Kiss. So Red Kiss, I think, is a fragrance that was really hyped by Jeremy Fragrance, and it got me really curious to try this one. I remember going to try this just before lockdown in 2020, and I remember spraying this and feeling a little bit underwhelmed. I didn't really see what the fuss was about this one, and I'm someone who really likes the rest of the Loverdose range. Loverdose Original was a fragrance that I was already wearing and already familiar with. I didn't buy it then. I bought a partial bottle, I think early last year, and I still didn't really get it, but the more I wore it, the more I wanted to wear it. It almost became a little bit addictive, but I'm not really sure what it was that I liked about it. So this opens with the citrus patchouli combination that is really throughout the Loverdose range, actually. But this one has blackcurrant, and the blackcurrant here isn't deep and syrupy. It's quite a light blackcurrant. The dry down gets a little bit warm, a bit powdery, but I wouldn't ever say that I could describe it as cocoa or I could describe it as hazelnut. It's something that's very indistinct for me, and I think without the notes, I wouldn't know those notes were there. I know this one does get described as a Nutella fragrance, as a chocolatey fragrance, but I really don't get those kinds of things from this one myself. This was sort of middling longevity. It was something that was quite close to skin. It did project for maybe the first hour, but after that it was pretty quiet. I do think other people like this one. I did have one comment on this fragrance. I think overall this is not something I want to repurchase. To me, this doesn't smell very now, which doesn't necessarily bother me, but I would say that it smells more like the fragile kind of phase of about 10 years ago. It's something like that, something that would fit in that kind of time period. So yeah, I will keep this beautiful red bottle because I just really love that sort of teenage angsty vibe that it gives, but I won't be repurchasing this one. So that's Loverdose Red Kiss by Diesel. So the next empty is one from Shay and Blue, and Shay and Blue are a house where I've decluttered 8 of the 9 fragrances that I've bought from them. So you can see how I just really don't get on with that brand generally. But this is one that I did end up finishing the bottle of. So this one is White Peaches, and White Peaches really is what it says on the tin. It's not really anything much more than peaches. And I'm someone who doesn't really generally like peach in fragrance, but I would say this is more of a dry peach. It's more like a peach schnapps or something like that. This really, to me, smells a little bit almost carbonated. It's not fizzy, but that sort of smell of the carbonation of the water. And it also has a bit of a greenness to it. So it's like a green blackcurrant leaf kind of smell in the background, but with this peach schnapps over the top. It doesn't last a long time on skin. It lasts a bit longer on clothing, but really not that long either. It's one that you just keep in your handbag and spritz at lunchtime just as a refresher. It's a good daytime kind of spring, summer fragrance, really. I did enjoy using it. I wouldn't repurchase because I didn't love it. But yeah, Shay and Blue White Peaches. So the next fragrance is again a little 10ml travel spray, really handy for taking your handbag. And this one's Salvatore Ferragamo Signorina Ribelle. So Signorina Ribelle is a summery, sweet, floral fragrance with a background of creamy coconut. I didn't really smell the coconut when I first tried this fragrance, but as I wore it more, it really comes out in the dry down. That's where you get the coconut, in the far dry down. And that's the bit of the fragrance that I really enjoy. So the florals in this are mainly frangipani and ylang ylang, and that's what gives it that tropical feel. But it does make me think of holidays, and the coconut really adds a little bit of a lactonic touch to this. I think ice cream is technically listed in the notes, or gelato or something. I would never ever pick out ice cream or gelato in this fragrance. It just is generically sweet, this one. I wouldn't ever rate this fragrance as very natural or realistic, but it's just a really fun one and perfectly pleasant. I really liked layering this one with the Kayali Vanilla Cocoa Perfume Oil. I thought they worked really well together and they really amped each other up. And yeah, I would recommend layering this one with that. I bought this fragrance really as a mistake. I meant to get Signorina Misteriosa, and I think that one just wasn't that available at the time. I think it's been discontinued a while now. It's probably impossible to find. But I remember trying that one a while back, and that's smelling like a berry milkshake almost. And I just wanted to have a little decant of that one, a little 10ml. But I think my time for that one is past now. But I did enjoy this one. Signorina Ribelle is still a nice fragrance for that particular price point, but it's not something that I want to repurchase. So the next fragrance that I finished is one from Moschino, and Moschino are not a house that I tend to love. I've decluttered a lot of fragrances from Moschino. I've decluttered So Real, Chic Petals, Moschino Fresh Couture Pink. I've finished Toy 2, I've finished Toy 2 Bubblegum, and this one I've had for a few years and I've finally finished it this summer. So this one's Moschino Funny, and this is really a really nice summer fragrance. It's really refreshing, and I think the refreshing thing about it is that it's got orange, but the orange is quite bitter. It's more like an orange peel, and it's also got a green tea aspect to it, which makes it super refreshing for the summer. And also in the dry down, there's some oak moss. So I wouldn't say it's like distinctively oak moss. It's more just a bitterness that continues in the dry down. The citrus is still there in the dry down, but it's more about the bitterness from something else other than the orange. I think really this fragrance, along with all other Moschino fragrances, for me, has a signature DNA. And the signature DNA is a citrus musk. And the musk in Moschino fragrances can often be a laundry musk, something that you would find in a powdered detergent is really how I would describe the musk in most Moschino fragrances. This one, it's really not so bad. And I really did enjoy this fragrance and I'm sad to see it go. But I won't repurchase this fragrance because I think there are other citrus fragrances out there for me potentially to be tried and enjoyed. I'm generally not someone who loves citrus in fragrances, so this is really rare for me to enjoy wearing a citrus fragrance. And I think this fragrance is often compared with the other really famous Moschino fragrance, which is Moschino I Love Love. I've tried that fragrance and I actually prefer this one to I Love Love, but I'm not a massive fan of light blue. So I guess it depends whether you like light blue or not. If you don't like light blue, maybe try this one. It had kind of middling longevity. It didn't project much after the first hour. I'd say it lasted maybe 4 hours on my skin and then it was gone. So that's Moschino Funny. So this next fragrance is one that I bought in January 2020 and I credit this fragrance with making me think about doing perfume YouTube. And this was my first celebrity fragrance as well and my first blind buy. So this fragrance is Sarah Jessica Parker's Covet Pure Bloom. I think this fragrance is pretty much impossible to find now. It's a flanker of Covet, which is a very strange fragrance. I finished a small bottle of that one too. And that fragrance smells like lemon pledge with lavender furniture wax and a background kind of cocoa. It's a really weird fragrance and I do get that, you know, it's unusual for a celebrity fragrance and it stands out, but I can't say I love that fragrance. This one is definitely more mainstream. This one is probably one of the most shampooy fragrances I've ever come across. This one is definitely, you've just stepped out of a shower and you've used a nice fruity floral shampoo. So this is mandarin, sort of soft orange tones, but also with some white florals in the background. And then there's a very gentle, almost coconutty feeling as well to this. But really overall, it's mainly that fruity floral. It's something that with middling longevity again, 4 hours maybe, and then you'll perhaps have to reapply. It's quite close to skin after the first hour. It's just a pleasant one. It's something that's inoffensive. It'd be perfect for work or something like that, which is where I did generally wear it. I also wore it to bed. It's one of those that's quite nice for bed because it's quite clean smelling. I can't repurchase this, but I wouldn't repurchase this. I remember being so in love with this when I first got it. I think I bought it for something like £8. And I guess, you know, it's a celebrity fragrance. It's an old celebrity fragrance and that's the kind of price you can get them for, or you could back in 2020. I probably wouldn't pay any more than about £12, £14 for this. I don't think it's worth it, but I did enjoy using it and it will forever hold significant memories for me for being my first celebrity fragrance, my first blind buy, and the one that made me think that, wow, if this is this good and it was £8, what else is out there? Shall I do some perfume YouTube? So that's Covet Pure Bloom by Sarah Jessica Parker. So this next fragrance is a really weird one for me because the first bottle of this I decluttered because I absolutely hated it. And I got a second partial bottle when I bought another fragrance, when I bought Lolita Lempicka by Lolita Lempicka. And I thought, oh no, I don't want this. And I almost just straight decluttered it straight away because I just didn't even want to try it because I hated the first bottle I had so much. But this one I really liked and I've finished the bottle. So this is CK Into You Her. And this one I wore loads this summer when I broke my ankle and I couldn't go anywhere. And the weather wasn't great, but it was still, you know, a reasonable temperature. I found this one just really refreshing. So the first bottle I had of this just smelt to me like a powdery latex glove. It reminded me of sort of smoker's gum almost, like the when people chew nicotine gum, that kind of smell. And I just couldn't stand it. This one just doesn't have that at all. It's the same fragrance. I smell the opening is the same, but the dry down is different. I don't know whether they've reformulated. I tried looking for a batch code on this. I can't seem to find one. I know there was a batch code on the last bottle I had, but I don't know what it was. So I don't know whether this is a new bottle or whether this is an older bottle, but I'm just really confused by this fragrance and I'd be very wary to buy another bottle because I just don't know whether I like the older or whether I like the newer, or whether it's like a maturity thing, whether it's been sitting around longer or a shorter period of time, or whether my taste has dramatically changed maybe in the year or so that I've had between those two bottles. I really don't know. But this one is a really fresh lemon, but with a ton of really middling kind of vanilla, a really creamy vanilla with some woodiness. So the lemon is really soft and the vanilla is very soft and creamy, but it's never really something that's overly gourmand. And the woodiness smells like pine needles almost. It smells like log cabins, that kind of smell. And it's something that just has this sort of refreshing feel to it. And it's just a really nice fragrance for things like bed. It's just a really nice relaxing one. And I found it really comforting actually when I was sort of incapacitated over the summer to keep spraying this. And that's probably why I went through it quite so quickly. But yeah, this one reminds me a little bit with the woodiness of the pine needle sort of feel in Chloe Nomade almost. But Chloe Nomade is definitely a little bit amped up because it's got the oak moss as well. But this is sort of a similar kind of woodiness really. Again, I'd be really hesitant to repurchase this because of the reasons I've outlined already. I wouldn't say this one lasted super long. You can smell it the whole day on clothes. If you spray it on your clothes, it's something that lasts and lasts and lasts for days. Spray it on your skin, it's a couple of hours and it's faded a little bit. But I really did like the opening and that's probably why I kept respraying it. I think this fragrance has a very split opinion. I think there are some people who absolutely love it and some people who really hate it. And I'm just having experienced these two bottles and had completely different experiences. I don't know whether that's the difference in formulation or whether that's truly people's opinions on this fragrance. So if you have hated this one in the past, if you see it in a store, go and spray it because it might be different. So that's CK Into You, Her. So the next fragrance that I finished was a partial bottle that I was given by Frances here on YouTube, Happiness Sparkles. And Frances was in the UK back in May and she sent me the remnants of her dossier. I think this was probably about between quarter and about half full. And this is Oriental Cherry, which I think has been renamed Ambery Cherry by Dossier. And this is the clone fragrance for Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. And I'd never really owned a spray clone fragrance before. I'd had oils before, but not a spray. And this one really impressed me. I would say this is not the same as Lost Cherry, but if you enjoy it as its own fragrance, as I think you should with most clone fragrances, you shouldn't judge them by something that you want to be identical. You should just judge them whether they're a nice fragrance or not. This is a nice fragrance. It is pretty close, but I think the cherry in Lost Cherry is very different for me. There are different aspects that run through that fragrance, and I don't get a differing aspect to the cherry in this fragrance, but that's a very minor point. And really, given the price point difference of these two fragrances, I don't care. This one, I had a few compliments on from people at work. I had people asking me what it was. I had people Googling it. I had people looking up Lost Cherry. I had people going into John Lewis and trying Lost Cherry who'd never been interested in trying a Tom Ford fragrance before. This kind of DNA is something that people really enjoy in fragrances. It's friendly, it's gourmand, it's sweet, it's Moorish. And if you haven't tried Lost Cherry, which I was sure that even if you haven't tried it from the bottle, you've probably smelt it on somebody. It is a cherry, but it's also an almond. It's kind of like a cherry Bakewell kind of fragrance or a cherry amaretto kind of style fragrance. It's got a few other things going on. I mean, Tom Ford's Lost Cherry, there's kind of, I smell the cherry stone and I smell like black cherry and I smell a red cherry, I smell a maraschino cherry. This doesn't have all of those aspects to it, but it's still a gorgeous fragrance. And it's one that did last a long time. People could smell it for the first hour or so. It did project really well. I took this one to work and I'd refresh this at lunchtime. And I knew that I was radiating this cherry scent, this cherry and almond scent, and people could smell it. And I just think that it just got such a response, this one. And I don't think I was, obnoxious in my perfume spraying. I wasn't overspraying, but it just is one that projects for the first hour or so. So This one, I would recommend trying out Dossier. If you're in a country that sells Dossier, I was really impressed by this for the price point in comparison to Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. So I don't live in a country that sells Dossier fragrances, but even if I did, I don't think I'd repurchase this one. As nice as it was, I've already got a perfume oil clone of Lost Cherry from Luxor Fragrances that was sent to me for review for free. So I don't need another clone of Lost Cherry, but I wouldn't hesitate to say, you know, if you are looking for a clone, do try this one. I've made a video all about clone fragrances. It's a whole conversation for half an hour about clone fragrances, the do's and don'ts and the moralities of it. And ultimately, I've decided that I'm not going to seek them out, but I'm not going to say no. I think that, you know, clone fragrances, they have their place. And if you are interested in that video, I'll link it down below because I'm really proud of that video and it took me a long time to make it and it got a huge response. So if you haven't seen it, please do watch it. It's good, honestly. And I don't ever say that about my own videos, but I do think that one's good. So this is Dossier's Ambery Cherry or Oriental Cherry. So the next fragrance is one that I was gifted by Juliette. So Juliette used to make perfume content here on YouTube, but I haven't seen her making any videos recently. Her channel name is Juliette is Happier Today, so I'll leave her channel link down below. But Juliette knew that I was interested in the EDP of this fragrance line, but I couldn't find it. And Juliette found this flanker fragrance for me and sent it to me. So this one is Please Please Low by Issey Miyake. So this fragrance, I don't care what the notes say. This one to me is sweet pea stems with the flowers in the background. It's very sweet, a little bit green, a little bit synthetic smelling. It smells like it's got a lot of ambroxan in it. It smells like it's got some laundry musk in the dry down. It's a very clean smelling fragrance. It's not the most natural thing in the world, but it definitely is a very different fragrance. It's almost an aquatic floral green, light green. I would say very much a light green, not anything mossy or dark. A light green, summery, spring kind of fragrance. I think I put this in my work perfumes video because I was using it a lot for work. So this one, I think, you know, middling longevity, something that lasts probably longer than most fragrances of this type, which is the kind of shampoo-y style clean ones. I think it's also quite a different fragrance. I think if you want something interesting in this kind of genre, this is definitely more interesting than a lot of them. I wouldn't repurchase this because it does have that laundry musk in the dry down. That's not something I love. But I did enjoy trying this and I wouldn't say it's a bad fragrance at all. I think it's very different. So that's Please Please Low by Issey Miyake. So the next fragrance is one that I bought really embarrassingly solely to make up a minimum spend so that I would get free postage on another fragrance that I was buying. I'm ashamed to admit that almost, but I think a lot of people do that, don't they? I hate paying postage. So this one is Jill Sanders Simply Poudre, and I'd say this is probably one of the best accidental buys I've had for a while. So I bought this one, I think, December 2020. And this is, or it was, a milky pink liquid. And that really is how it smelled. It smelled a little bit lactonic. It smelled almost like a Johnson's baby lotion in a way. It had heliotrope, which gave it a real slight powderiness or a bit of creaminess. I wouldn't say it ever went into cherry or almond. It's just a general kind of body lotion kind of smell, almost like a Johnson's baby lotion, as I've said, but a little bit more elevated than that. It's not as sharp as Johnson's baby lotion is a little bit cool, synthetic kind of smell. This was a little bit more smooth and a little bit warmer, something that is good for bed. It's one of those sort of clean skin kind of fragrances, ones that are, you know, not huggy but sort of enveloping. It wasn't a loud one, perfect for sleeping, something that doesn't last ages but isn't short-lived either. A very middling kind of fragrance. I think I really lucked out with this one because I've tried a few other Jill Sander fragrances thanks to a few people who've sent me samples, and I didn't like them as much as I liked this one. But I think as I went through this fragrance, my love for it waned. I think I got a bit bored from it because it's quite a linear one. This is one that doesn't really change over its course. And I don't think, even if this wasn't discontinued, even if it was possible to find this, I wouldn't repurchase it. It just wasn't something that I loved by the end of the bottle. So this is a 40ml bottle of Simply Poudre by Jill Sander. So that's the final fragrance in this video. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed it, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing, and also consider checking out my other perfume empties in my playlist that I'll list down below in the description box. So please let me know as well, have you used up any fragrances recently? And which ones would you repurchase, or which ones do you want to move on from? And please let me know if you've tried any of the fragrances in this video and what you thought of them. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.